Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show. I'm your host, Greg Bennett, and today I have one of the most delightful conversations I've had on this show with legendary ultra-endurance athlete Rebecca Rusch. In this episode, Rebecca discusses her journey and the importance of the documentary film Blood Road, and how rather than closing a door to a part of her life, it opened her life to so much more. The thing that becomes clear in this episode is Rebecca's ability to adapt and become stronger under difficult circumstances. And this is true for her life, her career as an adventure racer and a professional mountain biker. Now, be sure to listen to this one until the end. There's just simply so many fantastic stories and takeaways from one of the world's truly great, inspiring people. Now, before we go on, thank you for all the love, whether that be reviews on Apple Podcast, social media feedback and suggestions. Just thank you so much for taking the time and thank you for sharing. The show is gaining traction because of you. I really hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. Rebecca truly is an inspiration. And remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. I'm so grateful for the continued support of the show from these incredible sponsors. You really do need to have these products in your life. Personally, I use each of them daily. Athletic Greens nutritional beverage, Hyperice recovery tools, and the glutathione supplement Continual G. What I love about Athletic Greens is its simplicity. It's delivered straight to your door and it takes seconds to mix with water. It tastes great and goes down easy. And I know I'm getting the most comprehensive nutritional beverage on the planet in one quick drink. If you're looking for one product that has as much high quality nutrients in it as possible, then you want to consider Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is more than just a multivitamin and multimineral. It takes it to the next level, adding a daily dose of superfoods, probiotics, greens blend, and more to support the gut health, energy, immunity, and stress. And right now, Athletic Greens is giving you, my audience, a special offer on top of their all-in-one formula. You'll receive 1 year supply of vitamin D and 5 travel packs for free with your first purchase for additional immune support. Many of the population are vitamin D deficient, including myself. I focus heavily in getting in the sun throughout the day, but when I can't, I religiously supplement with vitamin D. Adding vitamin D to your daily routine is just a great way to support vitamin D production. So if you're looking to get more out of your multivitamin and invest in your immunity, energy, and gut health, then you'll struggle to find anything more comprehensive than Athletic Greens. Take ownership of your health today and receive comprehensive nutritional insurance, a free year supply of vitamin D, and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase by visiting athleticgreens.com/Greg. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Greg. Now, you'll hear me mention Normatec and Hypervolt from Hyperice in several of the conversations with my guests in this show. Many of my guests and I are using these recovery tools religiously. You really must have them in your house. Sit in a pair of Normatec boots at the end of a long day. Use the Hypervolt percussion massage device to warm up muscles and loosen hot spots before working out or anytime you have a niggling injury. They're just so easy and they're so quick and they work. Their vibrating foam rollers, thermal technology, and Normatec compression systems just help you warm up faster, recover quicker, and simply move better. Seriously, these products are the perfect Christmas gift for any family member or good friend. Get $50 off all percussion devices now, no code needed, and get an additional 10% off with code GREG10 at hyperice.com. That's hyperice.com, HYPERICE.com, and use code GREG10 for 10% off. I have a web address for all of my listeners who already know that 1, the human body makes the most powerful antioxidants on earth. 2, the master antioxidant your body cells make is called glutathione, and the human body needs glutathione to live. 3, the reason I'm addressing a select group of listeners with this web address is that once you see what these scientists in my hometown, Sydney, have accomplished, it'll blow your mind. Go check out continualg.com, continualg.com. That's CONTINUALG.com. Check it out and let them know that I told you about it. All right, today's guest is one of the world's greatest ultra-endurance athletes. Her career has spanned numerous adventure sports, including rock climbing, adventure racing, whitewater rafting, cross-country skiing, gravel biking and mountain biking. And she was nominated into the International Mountain Bike Hall of Fame in 2019 and owns 7 world championship titles in multiple disciplines. She's an author. Her book, Rush to Glory, Emmy Award winner for a documented cycling expedition on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, Blood Road, motivational speaker and event promoter with Rebecca's Private Idaho. She's contributing to the greater good and giving back with her foundation, Be Good. And it's just such a tremendous privilege to have her on the show. So welcome and thank you for joining me on the Greg Bennett Show, Rebecca Rusch. How are you?
I'm awesome. What an amazing intro. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are more than welcome. It's such a delight. And we were just talking before I started recording that I'm such a big fan. And it was only on LinkedIn 2 or 3 years ago when you accepted me as a friend, and I was so excited about it. So I'm equally excited right now that you've come on to the show to have a chat with me. So thank you again.
Absolutely. It's nice to talk in person instead of digitally through all these new platforms. Well, they're not new, but a new way to connect with the world.
Absolutely. Where are you at the moment?
I'm at home in Ketchum, Idaho. I'm looking at some snow outside.
Oh, well, it's very different down here. I'm in southern Florida right now, and it's actually warming up again. We had a nice couple of days of coolness where it got down to, in the 50s, and I loved it for a moment. And now we're back up into the 70s and 80s. So
oh, wow.
I'm kind of missing a little bit of the coolness. But are you getting out skiing much then?
Yeah, I do a lot of cross-country skiing for training and backcountry skiing, and also fat biking on the snow, and some winter running if the trails are good. The nice thing about having access to all 4 of those things is if there's a lot of snow, I go skiing. If there's a little bit of snow, I go running and biking. And so I kind of make the choice of sport based on what the conditions are like right now.
You're truly unbelievable. Doing some homework for this show and obviously being a fan for some time, I guess my question is, do you ever just want to sit back and be comfortable? Because it seems to me, like when I was ending my career, I started look for races that were always fair weather. They weren't too hot, they weren't too cold, and I was looking for comfort. Yeah. But you seem to be drawn to either the freezing cold, the hot, humid conditions, the jungles, and everything else in between. Do you ever just want to be comfortable?
Well, yes, I do want to be comfortable. I think people sometimes misinterpret my nickname's the Queen of Pain, and people thinking that, I always want to torture myself. But so yeah, my home in Idaho is very comfortable. I was going to go out this morning, but it was 3 degrees, and I was like, oh, it's too cold. I don't want to go outside. So I pushed my workout to the afternoon. But yeah, I mean, people love to be comfortable, but I also feel like, the extremes, of pushing yourself really hard or being in a really challenging event, all of a sudden when you get through something super hard like that, your bed feels more comfortable. You appreciate the food you get to eat and sit down and eat a meal. You appreciate being warm, like you said. And so it's almost like that sort of, maybe it's a bit of an alter ego, the super challenging things actually make the comfort and just the simple life at home that much more cherished.
I love that. It almost amplifies the appreciation you have for the comforts of the world.
Exactly.
And it's funny, I was talking to my wife Laura this morning, and we were talking about how to some degree life has become fairly comfortable, and we all seek these challenges to test ourselves, and sometimes it's, I think we become stronger when we overcome some of these stresses in life. So I get what you're saying, that and you mentioned 3 degrees for Australians and everybody else listening outside of the US. That's 3 degrees Fahrenheit, which I can't convert that right away into Celsius, but it's really, really bloody cold.
Bloody cold. That's the official temperature.
Yeah. So how has your life changed, I guess, since that documentary Blood Road, which, as I mentioned in the intro, has won the Emmy Awards and was such a brilliant documentary that just... It's more than just an endurance. It's more than the physical. There's a deeper level emotionally, mentally, logistically. It's about teamwork, relationships, about seeing what war does 45 years later even, and the impact it has on people. But did you get a tremendous amount of recognition from that? And did your life change after that documentary?
Well, thank you for mentioning Blood Road. It's the most important ride and the most important work I've done in
Mm,
my life. I didn't realize that was the case going in. But yes, absolutely, my life has changed from being able to do that ride and that collaboration. And also to create a film and to be able to tell the story. It hasn't changed in the way that somebody might think, oh, you're an Emmy award winning, you have Emmy award winning film. My day to day life is I still go to the grocery store. I still do all the same normal things. So it didn't change in the way of like, oh my gosh, I'm suddenly like showered in money or exposure or anything like that. And I didn't really care about that. I didn't do that ride in order
mm,
to make a film. What really changed was a very pivotal moment in my life. And I think now, 5 years later, I'm just now uh, seeing that was a catalyst for some really powerful change in my life, which was finding my purpose for my riding. I can't tell you how many times people ask me why
mm,
I do these endurance
mm,
sports. So, I found my own personal purpose. I connected with my family. I launched a foundation because of that. And I really feel like my dad brought me there and my career brought me there really for him to be able to teach me as a father, even though he's gone. And so my business has been expanding and growing and I'm changing because I have a real personal focus on what I want my legacy to be, you know.
mm.
So it's
Can
been a
you?
powerful experience. It's been really great actually. And
Well,
this is one
you could
thing.
see that. You
Yeah.
could see that.
I mean, thank you. Like when I got back from Blood Road, all these people had said, when I found, oh, you found the place where your father died. That must have been amazing closure. And I can't tell you how many times people had used the word closure and they're like, oh, great. You shut a door, you closed a book. And all along, I never understood that and I understand now, but I kept saying it wasn't a closure. It was a discovery. It was an opening of me getting to know my father and me understanding myself. And now 5 years later, it was absolutely not a closure or an end, but a beginning to this really amazing phase in my career and my life. And it has really changed me and the work that I
Mm,
do.
mm.
On the
Can you?
outside, it might look the same. I mean, I'm still doing endurance events and, still putting on my race and doing all that, but the focus behind it is all a lot deeper. I just kind of understand what I'm doing. I think I intuitively knew why I did all these rides and pushed myself like this, but I wasn't able to articulate what I stand for, why I'm doing it, what is the mission statement of my business, my foundation, what's my personal mission statement. Those are all things that came after Blood Road, starting with what is Rebecca's personal mission statement? What do I stand for?
I think all of us are trying to find our purpose and our reason and our why, and it's incredible that you had to take yourself through what you did in that documentary and everything that went with it to actually find yourself. And your journey was being quite incredible to that point already. And it would almost look from an outsider that you already had a very good purpose with your life, with your adventure racing and testing yourself and going beyond where we thought humans could go. But you tell before we go too further on, because people, if they haven't seen Blood Road, firstly, put it on a must watch because it is an incredible film. But just give us a quick insight into the film for people that haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, the synopsis is I'm an endurance adventure athlete cyclist, and I thought, what ride could I do that would be, a really amazing adventure and hasn't been done before? And I came up with the idea to ride the entire length of the Ho Chi Minh Trail through Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, and ultimately to do the ride, but to look for the place where my father's plane went down in 1972. He was a pilot in the Vietnam War and he didn't come home. And so I had these map coordinates and the idea to do this bike expedition. And it took years actually to make it happen. And Red Bull was my main partner in that. And, they're like, yes, we'll help you do this logistically. And, we'll see what we can film. And that ended up being a documentary length film of, my journey on the trail. I rode with the Vietnamese cyclists And so, it's a lot more than a cycling film. It goes quite deep into, the war and the war history and the bombs that are still left there, but also personal relationships and healing and understanding somebody who was on the other side of a conflict. So it was really quite an incredible ride, and amazing riding through the jungle and doing the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and one of the hardest, sort of most ambitious physical expeditions of my life. But honestly, the physical journey was not the hard part. It was really the emotional journey that was new to me. I was not as trained for that kind of introspection, and actually telling a story on film too, and having to verbalize and share what is typically, endurance athletes. We're in our heads a lot, and we spend a lot of time just talking to ourselves. And so that was quite a challenge to be open, and just pretty raw in that film, and just take people on that journey with me. But it's been an amazing gift, and so thanks for watching it and mentioning it.
No, it's funny you mentioned about being sort of vulnerable and authentic, and allowing yourself, because I think you're right. I think as endurance athletes, we become very good at becoming insular and living in our own world, and we become very good at managing our emotions and other people's expectations and our own expectations. And so we almost become we live in this sort of neutral zone. But you could see in that film, in the way you speak now, that it was kind of like, yeah, we're gonna shake Rebecca until she lets loose a little bit, and we're going to see a little bit deeper vulnerability. And that I can imagine being, an ultra endurance athlete like you are, that must have really been the hardest part of the entire process. Because I feel it. I'd be the same. I kind of get where you're coming from on that.
Well, it's a good point, because we as athletes, especially endurance athletes, we fortify ourselves, and we're strengthening ourselves, and we're building up reserves and resilience. We're putting down the, sort of pain synapses that are happening in our brain. We're ignoring those. And so we build quite a few layers of defense. I mean, all humans do it, not just endurance athletes. And so when people ask me, why did you have to ride 1,200 miles to go to this spot on a map? Why didn't you just go there directly? And the reason is what you're touching on exactly, is that I needed to be physically tired and strip away all of those defense layers. And I needed to go there in my way, so that I could accept whatever was going to be waiting for me in those crash coordinates. If I went there just Rebecca as is, and I wasn't physically exhausted, I would have still had up all those emotional barriers. So the only way I know how to access my internal self, and this gets on to why I do all this stuff, is really when I strip away all those defense layers and I'm physically tired, I have better access to my mind, and my emotion and my heart and my soul.
Wow. That's brilliant. It's funny. My wife and I would say to each other when we're both physically exhausted, maybe go take a nap, because we're not that much fun to be around. So you like it the other way. I kind of feel like sometimes when I get physically exhausted, we see a person that probably we should probably put walls up around.
I think if you're physically exhausted and you're hungry, that's the worst combination. But if you're just physically exhausted and you've had enough to eat, then we're usually, a really raw version of ourselves, but we're hopefully not mean to other people if you've had a snack.
Yeah, I like that. That's brilliant, though. And I kind of feel like, we talk about yourself being in this ultra endurance adventure world. And I kind of always feel like it's, being a triathlete myself, it was the ultra endurance adventure world that you're in is almost like the sibling to triathlon. I feel like we're all in the same realm, but we're just sort of approaching it from different avenues. And it's interesting. I have one friend I think that you know very well, a guy by the name of Novak Thompson.
Oh yeah, Novak and I raced together for 10 years. He was the navigator, and I was the captain of our team. So we were a dynamic duo. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he started off in triathlon, actually. I raced him when we were juniors, and he was phenomenal. And I think he got bored with triathlon. I think he needed more. And but now he lives in the same little town that we live in Noosa, Australia. And but I did reach out to him on Facebook before we mentioned this, and he said to say hi. So
cool.
Yes, you guys were on for many years there. You did the Raid Gula, some of those, which, I mean, while we're touching on some of those, those extreme adventure races, was there one that stands out that you're like, that was just insanity?
Oh, Yeah, I mean, the raid Goa in Tibet and Nepal was a pretty impactful one. Novak and I, we raced together in Vietnam in the raid, and that was 20 what was it, 2009 maybe, in Vietnam. But that was the first year that I had ever been to Vietnam. It's the first time I really, the sort of seed of an idea of riding Blood Road, you know, 10 years earlier, I had this seed. I don't remember what year it was, but the being in Vietnam for the first time, my mom came over and met me after our race there, and we finished fourth. We had a really strong race, but that was the first time I thought about, you know, is this what the jungle was like for all of the people serving and fighting and getting foot rot and trench foot and thinking about some of these things. Is this what my dad went through? And so my mom came over after the race, and we actually took a tour around, and we went to the place where my dad was stationed in Da Nang. We went to China Beach, where he had spent his R&R and written letters home. And that was the first time my mom and I talked about my dad, and that there was a real memory coming up. And I remember our guide sort of pointed across over to Laos, and he's like, "See those hills over there? That's the Ho Chi Minh Trail." And I took a photo. I distinctly remember this moment. I took a photo and I looked across the hills, and I just thought, I wonder what that trail is like. I would like to go there someday. And this was long before I was a professional cyclist or, had any of this idea of riding the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And I remember that distinct moment was when I was like, that was where the seed was planted. And I didn't remember that until far into the process of Blood Road and looking, down my history. And I remembered that race in Vietnam with Novak, and that it was really impactful for me. And the first time I really started thinking about my dad.
That's amazing, isn't it? How the dots all connect, and
Yeah.
suddenly you're going down a path that you maybe hadn't planned or foreseen until it was that trip. And I mean, that Ho Chi Minh Trail, it's not exactly a trail, is it? I mean,
No.
it seems like a thousand little arms that all go everywhere, and you're trying to find the best way through the jungle, but there's some form of trail. Is that what it's like?
Yeah, you're kind of spot on. It was the Ho Chi Minh Trail was not one trail. It was really a network of trails that went north from Hanoi in Vietnam, crossed over into Laos and Cambodia, and then came back into Vietnam in the south near Ho Chi Minh City, or Saigon at the time. And so it was this braided network that was used to move supplies and people and ammunition down towards the south, to take over the south. And so it was purposefully hidden, even when it was in use. And there were lots of little arms. You're exactly right. And so what we did was really put together the most historically accurate, connect the dots that we could. And we found somebody in country, Don Duval, who he's been riding his motorcycle over there for 13 years and actually GPS mapping the country. A lot of Laos was not actually mapped if it weren't for Don Duval. And so we found this guy over there who had all this Ho Chi Minh Trail knowledge and had been riding his motorcycle all over there. And he really helped us put together the route that was historically accurate. And, there's still some places are overgrown jungle and there's nothing there. Some places are paved highways in, near the big cities, and the trail is really gone. And then other places, you still see actual cobblestones that were hand laid, and, there's tanks and remnants and bombs, of course, still left all along actual historical sections of the trail that are still there. So it's a mix of
Wow.
everything.
I know. I mean, do you have a love for being in the jungle, or is that something that is the jungle a discomfort to you like it is the rest of us, or did you actually find yourself, or you're able to embrace that a bit?
It would have been great if it was, 60 degrees and sunny every day, and if you could pick the perfect temperature and, for these expeditions. But no, I wouldn't say I have a love of the jungle. When we were adventure racing, some of the most difficult terrain is the jungle, because it's so wet. It's so hard to navigate through. You might think, oh, but you're warm. At least you're not freezing cold. But you end up getting different problems, like skin irritations and,
Mm.
leeches and all sorts of other stuff. And
No.
finding your way through the jungle is, yeah, it's overgrown. It's quite difficult. So, I like all different kinds of climates. I mean, where I live in Idaho is mountain terrain, and that's probably my favorite. But you know,
Mm.
the jungle has its own very special kinds of challenges, and I'm glad I had all that adventure racing experience, because really, I was trained for all different kinds of terrain and the navigation. And so a lot of the skills that I developed as an adventure racer have really come full circle in my cycling now. And doing bike expeditions, I'm using a map and compass all the time, and sort of the endurance things that I learned adventure racing, even though it's single sport now, cycling,
Mm.
I'm still carrying my bike and crossing rivers and doing a lot of stuff that Novak and I did as teammates together.
Well, let's wind the clock back then, because this is fascinating. Let's start. When did your passion for this kind of endurance adventure life begin?
I'd say my passion for the outdoors began in a small suburb in Downers Grove, Illinois, outside of Chicago. We're suburban family growing up with a single mom, obviously me and my sister, and I was always the kid that was playing in the dirt in the backyard and digging things. I was asking my mom if I could camp out, put the tent up and camp in the backyard. So even as a little kid, I was really gravitating towards the outside, being outside. I didn't mind being dirty, and I wanted to be outside. And so I think that
Mm.
began at a really young age. I didn't get into sports until high school running. I joined the cross country and track team, and no joke, I wasn't an athlete. There wasn't an athlete influence in my family, but my next door neighbor said if I joined the cross country running team, I get a free tracksuit and I would never get fat. And so I was like, oh, those two things sound pretty good. As a young girl, with body image
Yeah.
issues, I was like, I won't get fat
Oh,
and
yeah.
I get a sweet tracksuit. So that is how I found running um, as a sport. But what I really found was I enjoyed pushing myself physically. I found a community of friends, that I fit in with. And
Mm.
as we know in high school, you're trying to fit in, you're trying to find your people. And that
Mhm.
cross country running became that for me. And it quickly became apparent that the longer the event was, the better I was. I wanted to be a sprinter and do hurdles because they just seemed really cool and they didn't have to go as far in their training workouts. And I'm like, I want to do the shorter stuff and the jumping over things, but I wasn't any good at those things. And so the coach kept putting me in the 2 mile and the 3 mile. It's like, yeah, but that's harder. But physically, I just was better at those. And so I think that
Yeah.
was kind of self-selected. And as the years went on, I found that being on the trail and doing long distance stuff, not only was I physically built for it, mentally, like I said, I just really liked sort of this kind of vision quest type of a thing where, it really is a bit of a therapy for me to go do something really long and access a different part of
Mm.
your brain and your mind that you weren't really thinking about at the beginning of the trail.
And was there a point where in all of that then that I mean, you recognize that you could go longer. Was there a point that you're like, hang on, was there one moment where this is a talent, this is a strength of mine, and maybe I should go all in and as a career? Because I mean, you've had quite the career in the endurance world. Was there one particular moment that you were like, hang on, I'm actually reasonably good at this?
I thank you for saying that. I just kept accepting invitations to do things. I was managing a rock climbing gym in California after college, and a bunch of adventure racers came in. Kind of the sort of royalties, guy Ian Adamson and Kathy Sasson and all these people I didn't know, but they needed to learn some climbing skills. And I was running climbing gyms. So that's where I got introduced to adventure racing. And really, it was just like, oh, these people need a girl on their team because the way adventure racing was, you had to be co-ed. And so most teams were 3 men, 1 woman. So honestly, I feel like I sort of stumbled into this sport of adventure racing and a career of it. And eventually, I just started getting invited because there weren't a lot of women doing it. I kept getting invited on different races and different things. And Really, I just kind of like the first year Eco Challenge, the first race I did, we won. We won the race. We didn't know what we were doing. It was a 24-hour race in California, and the prize was an entry to Eco Challenge Australia. And it was like, wow, I'll get a free trip. Cool. So, really, honestly, I went on that thinking, oh, I'll get a trip to Australia and then I'll come home and, get back to working. But that really led to more and more invitations and more races. So, it really was this one by one add on of like, oh, do you want to go do this? Okay, sure. Why not? Oh, do you want to go do this? Okay, sure. Why not? And then suddenly it was, getting invited. Suddenly it was like, I think I could just I like this adventure racing thing. Maybe I'll just start my own team because I was tired of waiting around for invitations to go to these cool races. So that's when I started a team. I started getting sponsors. I started, I leveraged a bit of, my climbing contacts from the climbing gym, and I was still working full time there. But I started my own team, and it started to take off. And that's where I was like, you know what? If I want to go travel and do all this stuff, and initially, like that kid in the backyard, it was the travel that was appealing to me of going all these cool places. But eventually it became, 12 years of really an amazing team dynamic, being a team captain and like getting our sponsorship and learning all the leadership of having to do all that and organize our plane tickets. So I really got a lesson in kind of management. And it was pretty cool. And honestly, I just feel like one thing led to the other and, this adventure racing and then doing all this other stuff. And then, that turned into 24-hour bike racing. And that seemed pretty good. So, I'll go back to your question of, was there a moment when I thought, I might have some talent for this? It was probably that, around that time of 2003, that race in Vietnam with Novak, with our team, we were winning the race. And we ended up finishing fourth in, international, world caliber field. But we were winning the race. And there were a couple moments in there where I actually had to carry the backpack for my really big, strapping, strong teammate, John Jacoby, who you might know. He puts on races in Australia as well. John is so strong and he was having a down period. And so I ended up carrying his backpack for a while. And that was where I was like, we really are equals. And what I would see every time is day 1, 2, 3, I'm hanging on for dear life. Then day 3 through however long it was, I felt like I got stronger or I stayed the same, and oftentimes other people were deteriorating and just kind of hanging on towards the end. So that cycle kept repeating itself in adventure racing. And so then it was like, yeah, I am stronger the longer it goes. And it just sort of kept reinforcing itself, which is why I gravitate to the long distance events. Same as, just like we said in high school, when I gravitated to all this travel and these expeditions because I love to explore externally, but then I also stayed with them because I love to explore internally. And this kind of expedition riding now fuels both those things.
I in doing some homework for this, I did dig up a quote that I saw that Novak said about you, and it says, "She's developed a reputation as a goat-like tracker, a superb paddler, a climber, a perpetually organized, supportive, and good-humored teammate." I thought that was a really great wrap when you're talking adventure racing. I thought it was, I mean, that quote's obviously a little while ago when you guys were preparing, I think, for a big event. But when I read that, I was like, I've got to make sure I share it with you because I think that encompasses basically everything in that one quote. It's kind of this, you're like you mentioned, you're a great manager. You're going to carry the packs when someone like a John Jacoby can't do it. You're going to be you can do all the things that you need to in terms of paddling and climbing and tracking and all of those kinds of things, and you bring the humor as well. So I thought that was just a really great quote.
That's really flattering. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think with anything in life, you've got to have the skill set and the learning, but then you've got to have the right temperament and personality to work with people. And, adventure racing is not unique in that way. It was a great lesson in how to collaborate, how to do things together when you're scared and hungry and tired and lost. And then ultimately celebrating at a finish line it's quite rewarding when there's other people there who were part of the team that made it happen.
It's funny you talk about the finishing line just then. You mentioned the finish line. I had a friend of mine. I don't think you know. He might have been done before you started. His name was Tim Smallwood, a
Oh
very, very
yeah.
good mate.
Yeah, I know Tim.
Did you know Tim? Oh,
Yeah.
well, fantastic. Well, he's living down in Tasmania now, and I said to him after he'd done one in Morocco, I think was
Mhm.
it a eco challenge or
Yeah.
a raid gula in Morocco? Anyway, and I said to him, when you're done, you just must feel like sleeping for days. And he said, actually, Greg, because we've been going for 3 to 7 days, whatever distance it is, and we're always having these quick little naps, he said, you don't sleep very well when you get to the end because you're just so used to waking up and going, go, I got to go, I got to go.
Mhm.
Is that the same for you? Was it that you struggle to actually sleep when you've done these huge events?
Yeah, you've actually sort of altered your body rhythm and you've, really told it you're going to keep going. And so it does get into that rhythm. So yeah, a 2 hour nap will suddenly seem like a lot of sleep. And then you think, oh, I'm going to sleep for 10 hours. And really your body and your mind is just twitchy because it does take a while to synchronize, I guess, back to a normal, a normal everyday life.
I know it's borderline pretty unhealthy if we think about it. What you guys do in some of those incredible multi-day endurance events, and even the 24-hour mountain biking. I assume when you finish that, what's that like for you?
Um, that's pretty similar to a long adventure race. I mean, 24 hours isn't that long to stay awake, but when you think about your physically exerting yourself as hard as you can for 24 hours, um, yeah, it's it's a bit of a transition period, I'd say, after any big expedition like that. But it
Mm,
does take a
mm,
while for your body and your mind to shut down, and um, but I'll tell you, there's nothing better than riding all night and then the sun is coming up and you're like, I've been going 22
mm,
hours. Oh my gosh. And then you see the sunrise and it's pretty special. It's like you don't access all you can't always see this. We're a lot of times sleeping when the sun is rising. And I always think that in these multi-day events, like I should see the sunrise more. Like I should get up earlier and see the sunrise more
mm.
because it is pretty special. We start a new day. We're still here. We get to do something amazing. So that is one of my favorite parts about multi-day events is seeing sunrise every day.
I love that. I want to discuss some of your team and some of the relationships because any champion athlete like yourself and everything you've done in your life to date is just incredible. You can't have done it all on your own. Who are some of the people that have been on the journey with you, throughout all of these adventures and things that you've been up to?
Well, I'll definitely say mom was sort of number one fan, and she actually used to like type up race reports for me, and she'd be at every event, and so really she was the number one who, as a mom, when I'm like, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna move into my car, and I'm gonna like be an adventure racer. And she was supportive of that. She never said, why are you doing that, or this isn't going to work, or get a real job. So definitely she's been there all along. She's even traveled internationally. She went to that Vietnam race and kind of bopped around and tried to watch us as best she could. But yeah, mom, and really for setting an example as a single mom, and she worked in the computer industry and raised two children on her own. She really set an example for me of commitment and hard work and, being a leader. So she's been pretty integral.
Mm.
My husband's been a really fun adventure teammate. We've been together 15 years or so, and he really got me into cycling. And my first 24-hour race, and was a guy who's like, you know what, I think you might be really good at this. And as I was transitioning from adventure racing, and figuring out what am I going to do next, he's the one that got me tuned into 24-hour mountain bike racing, which was launched a whole second part of my career, and really got me into cycling. So I have to thank him for that. There's been tons of sponsors and mentors along the way, who obviously, as a professional athlete, um, it doesn't always pay that well. And so you need sponsors and you need partners. And my longest running partner since the rock climbing days, the rock climbing gym I managed was actually right down the road from Red Bull in Santa Monica. And Red Bull's been my longest running partner over 20 years now with them as an athlete. And that's been a really special relationship. And even through the transition from adventure racing and me not knowing what I was going to do, and they're like, well, just figure something out. And they really, as a partner, have really shaped me as an athlete and as a business owner. They've really provided a lot of tools instead of just a paycheck. It's like, they provide a lot of tools for me to do a film like Blood Road, to do projects, to be creative. I mean, the end of each year, the athlete manager is like, okay, what do you want to do next year? And let's figure this out together. So instead of telling me what to do, there was always this ask of like, what cool, crazy ideas do you have? And that really pushed me to develop my own brand and take my career in the direction that I wanted to take it, which I feel really lucky to have been able to kind of craft how I wanted my career in sport to go. And even through the changing sports and different things, and even different types of cycling, Red Bull's been supportive all the way along because they're like, that's cool. Okay, you want to do that? Go for it. So yeah, they've been amazing. And Blood Road wouldn't have happened for them. But I will tell you, I pitched Blood Road as a project idea and it got declined twice, pitched it to them twice, got declined twice, but they sent me back to the drawing board. And I really thought about, why did I want to do this ride? What was it about? What was important to me? And the pitch, from pitch 1 to pitch 3 over the 3 years of trying to get that project greenlit, they really did force me to evolve why I was going and to articulate why this was an important ride. And so I'm glad it got denied the first couple times because it actually got better and better. And I wouldn't have been ready for the ride as an athlete or emotionally ready if it had gotten accepted in that first year that I pitched it.
Interesting. So that was kind of a pitch where you were probably showing, look, it's a physical journey, and they wanted the story, they wanted the emotional journey as much as anything. And I've heard so many great things about Red Bull and their loyalty, their support, and the way they work with their athletes. I've heard things like, when you sign a contract with them, they fly you to Austria, or depending on where you are, they do all the medical testing and make sure they invest heavily in the people that they sponsor. They want the best for the people that they work with. And, a friend of mine, Mark Webber, who's been on the show, who used to drive Formula One for Red Bull. And, and he's still with Red Bull. He's been retired from racing for many years, but they still want to work with their people that they've invested in for many years, and they just want to keep working with people. And it always seems to me when I look back at my career, and I did have an option to go with Red Bull actually back in 2000, and it was very early on, 2002, as a young sort of athlete trying to find my way. I think that the contract was very small. I was like, oh, no. And in hindsight, it might have been a very good one to go with, because I think they do work with their athletes very well. I seem to think a lot of the athletes, all their social media platforms and everything seems to be a little bit more professional with the athletes that are working with Red Bull. I don't know. I think they provide all the media training. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they provide some of the media training. They really help you all become more professional. So that's fantastic.
Us. Yeah, they support us however we need, which is pretty great. You're right. They build the asset. They give you tools, to do your job better, which is pretty awesome. So I think that was a mistake for you not to go with him. But look where you are now. Running an amazing podcast.
It's okay, Greg. You could have been so much better. But that's okay. Look where you are now. Oh, dear. Exactly. A quick mini break. I really want to encourage you to do something special for yourself and sign up to Athletic Greens and get a free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase by visiting athleticgreens.com/Greg. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Greg. Hyperice now have a great holiday sale, $50 off Hypervolt and Hypervolt Plus, $400 off all normal tech packages, 20% off all other Hyperice tech, and the brand new Hypervolt Go is now available for $199. It's smaller and it's more portable. Hyperice, hyperice.com. That's hyperice.com, hyperice.com. Let's move on to, I am curious to delve a little bit more into that gray matter of yours and the mental approach that you have to some of these incredible journeys. Obviously, Blood Road, the adventure races we've talked about, and the 24-hour mountain bike. There has to be some pretty dark times in all of those. How are you managing that when you hit those really hard times? Do you have techniques that you're using to try and get yourself going?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year is we all let's just be blunt. We all go through really hard times, and I do feel like my practice as an athlete really helps me in everyday life in sort of dark times, and being lost and cold and lonely in the woods, and kind of figuring it out. It sounds quite cliche, but there are a lot of the same tactics that I use or mindset that I use during this year or during trying times at home, such as, reaching out to friends for support. So if I just put a sports spin on it when I don't want to do my training or, I just don't feel like it or it's too hard. I mean, it's the reason I have a coach, and it's the reason why I have training partners is they hold me accountable when I can't hold myself accountable. So I think forming a little community like that, to sort of be your training buddies in life or your training buddies in training, I think that's pretty important. And I do a lot of my stuff alone. But when I do need that accountability, there's a small handful of people that are always going to be there, including my coach. And so that's a really big part of me, sort of keep doing the work. And then some of the other tools that I use mentally when things are really hard, I've used this tactic for a while, since high school. The assistant high school running coach, kind of the day before the state meet, I'd had a really bad race before. And anyway, he introduced me to the concept of a mantra that you say in your head when you're running. And I remember the night before he told me, I was all full of negative talk about why, I was going to have a terrible race. And he said, all I want you to do is just go run. And all I want you to say the whole time you're running to yourself in your head is, I can, I will, I won't be denied. And I remember those words. And so I just did it. I ran the race. I can, I will, I won't be denied. And I didn't really understand what was happening. I thought it was stupid. I finished all state. I had a great race. And we talked about it afterwards. And he said, your brain can only fit one thought at a time. And so I was having you fill it with a positive thought instead of a negative one. And I've really used sort of self-talk even when I don't believe it, and I speak to myself, Rebecca, come on, you can do this. I speak to myself that way because the words that we use on ourselves, we often wouldn't even use on a stranger, or let alone a friend who was suffering next to you. Would you say, you suck, you're terrible, you should find another sport, what are you even doing out here? But you would never say that, but yet we say it to ourselves. And so, it's nothing new, but it's a mantra, or filling your head with positive thoughts instead of negative ones, and talking to yourself nicely. That's really one that I use a lot, and I have to keep learning it. It's been decades that I've been using that kind of a mantra. And ultimately, one of my main mantras, and, when I came home and wrote my own personal mission statement, the words "be good," which is how my dad signed all his letters home from the Vietnam War, with the words "be good." And so that's the one I fall to if I really, it's on my top tube on my stem, says "be good." I've got a little stem cap. But ultimately, it's be good. And that's either be good to myself, be good to whoever's around me, be kind to myself, be a best version of myself. There's a lot of ways that can be taken. So I think personal mantras are pretty important. If you do ride a bike, it's easy to write them on your top tube and tape them on there. You probably did that as a triathlete, taped words on your top tube.
Mine were always stuck in my head all the time. Like you, I practiced them all the time.
Yeah.
It's like one I always used was strong, you're capable, you're powerful.
Nice.
And that, even when I go to the gym now, if I'm sitting at the seated row and I'm about to try and lift a heavy weight, it's kind of like, okay, you're strong, you're capable. You can actually do this, and you're powerful. And it's amazing just doing that, how suddenly you can change and you feel those things. You actually feel those things even when a moment before you were like, oh, I feel tired, I feel rubbish, I suck, which we all do. But it's nice to have these quick mantras, these quick things, these affirmations that can just click us out of it as quickly as possible. And I think the more you practice those things, the better you get at just grabbing hold of them quickly. That's how I find it.
Yeah,
It's
and
kind of
I
like,
mean,
just grab
what's
it now.
interesting right now is all of these ancient techniques like visualization or mantras, they're not new, but what is happening now is science is actually proving what happens in your brain when you use positive talk. What happens in your brain and your body scientifically when you take a deep breath and breathe and relax. It affects your nervous system. And so what is so cool right now is these ancient techniques and practices are now backed by science. And so more people are embracing things like meditation and breath work. And because they're like, oh, well, the science says it works, even though the Buddhists have said it's worked for 2,000 years. I think now that stuff's becoming mainstream because it's backed by science, and you know what's going on in your brain when you take a deep breath. It's actually really cool. It's an
It is
exciting
really cool.
moment in our world because people that now are finding that they have their own medicine. We have our own medicine with breath, with relaxation, with mindfulness, with sound therapy, with vibration, that we can actually heal ourselves in a lot of ways. And I think athletes intuitively have known this because we're taking care of ourselves on the trail when we're physically, asking a lot of our bodies. We learn breath work, we learn focus, we learn a lot of those things. Not everyone has learned that if you're not an ultra endurance athlete. And then many athletes didn't really realize what they were doing. And that kind of hit me after Blood Road. I didn't really realize, but I've been doing a form of, moving meditation for decades in endurance sports, but I didn't really know it. And that was one big transition that came from post Blood Road, is journaling, starting to meditate, starting to get into some of those practices that I intuitively have done an athlete, but bring them into my everyday life. And that's been really kind of a nice sort of collision of understanding.
That's also well put, because I've mentioned on this show before that there's a lot of new self-help books and all sorts of things out there that are sort of describing things as new, but really they're just adding the science behind, well, the Bible or the Buddha or whatever that's been written for 2,000 years. Some of the greatest books ever written. They're in there. They're not easy to read, by the way. When everybody says the Bible's the greatest book ever written, I find it quite hard to actually read. But I'm not saying there's not some useful information in there. But it is interesting, even when we talk about prayer and it's about being thankful. Well, now we talk about being grateful, or grateful is whatever the words are. One's a action, one's a anyway. But it is, we're kind of for me, I've become a big advocate this last 12 months on being grateful and being present. Right? I mean, they're the two things that we can really have control over when we start to get a bit negative, or we start to, the noise is getting too loud. It's like, let's reduce the noise. Let's be grateful for what we have, and be present. And that's been a great lesson for all of us. I think this last 12 months with the lockdowns and everything, it's forced us to be present amongst family and close friends, or, if we're allowed to have close friends, depending on the world where we are. But it really has been an interesting year to practice a few other tools in our tool belt that we maybe we didn't realize we had. So it's been fascinating. But I also particularly really like your community, and having accountability partners. I couldn't agree more. Training partners, coaches, loved ones that are there to support you, because you do get tired physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's fantastic when you have them to pick you up. I want to move on to a little bit of your general health, because in my research here, and Novak mentioned to me a while ago that he had several very deadly diseases and hospitalizations and all sorts of things that he happened from these, crazy adventure races. How are you kind of Have you had those kind of experiences, and how are you managing your general health when that happens?
I've been pretty good, and I might say Novak got all that sickness and illness and all that because he was a triathlete. He was he was like a pretty boy taken care of, and somebody's cleaning his chamois for him. But I was living in the dirt, even as a kid. I was a dirty rock climber, and like dirt bag living out of my car. And so I probably didn't get sick because I ate a lot more dirt and I wasn't as clean as a child.
That's awesome. I think I read one of his was because it was something to do with you guys had to track through a cave for 24 hours.
Yeah, he got
and
sick
he might have got from the bats.
Mm-hmm. Well, from the bat
Well,
guano, really. The bat feces is what got all these people in the race sick.
But it didn't get you sick. You could handle it.
I guess so. I am a survivor. But yeah, I've been lucky. I haven't broken a bone, knock on wood. I haven't had a lot of illnesses. I've gotten a few parasites here and there from some of the international travel, but I've been pretty durable.
Wow.
And I don't know why. I think just injury wise, because I do a lot of different sports, I think that, and, haven't always just been a runner or just a cyclist. I think that has helped me be a bit more durable. And even now with cycling as a focus, I do a fair amount of time cross-country skiing and running and other things because I feel like it does help you have longevity as an athlete to mix it up a bit. But no, I've been pretty, my body has served me well.
I love that you just called Novak a pretty boy. I think I'm going to have to. He's a builder by trade, and he's probably one of the most manly men I know. The fact that he's a pretty boy, I don't know what that makes me.
You said something I really love that I want to get back to that has been awesome is you said this year, in these 12 months of really trying times is you've learned to, we've all learned, a lot of us, to control the things we can control because so much has been out of our control this year and you do feel lost, but you can control your sleep. You can control, how you respond to things. You can control your attitude towards things. You control the fact that you're hopefully staying physically active. These are things that people are finding in these last 12 months that I think is really awesome, that we are finding we control the things you can, and that's going to suddenly make the things you can't control, you're going to be able to deal with them a little bit better.
And I think on that, I think we're all far more resilient than we give ourselves credit for, or that the media might portray us. I think we're all far more resilient. I think we can take control, like you said, of our metabolic health and, and all those bits and pieces. Is there any, are you working on any kind of different forms of grounding, or for you, because you're in nature the whole time, I guess you're always feeling, and I feel like a lot of us are living in that kind of fight or flight type world, and I think we need to try and ground ourselves more. Are you doing anything in particular on that, or is just getting outside in nature what you do?
Yes to both those questions. I mean, I am really grateful that I can be outside every single day, and I will tell you, if I do nothing, I have to walk my dogs each day, and they make me go outside and just walk and look at the river. And so they're very grounding. And I think it's because, we go walk and we look around. I don't take my cell phone. And it's just being quiet and putting my feet on the earth 2 times a day because of my dogs. So that is something that, I really cherish as important mental time for me. And, I have, as I mentioned earlier, I've gotten more into, simple meditation, some breathing exercises. I've taken some really cool classes on vibrational therapy with crystal bowls and just the vibration of bowls that are tuned to different frequencies. And it's actually really interesting. And this was one of the science things I was talking about before. Everything is vibrating in our world on a frequency. Even the desk you're sitting at is vibrating on a frequency. And we all know when someone comes into a room with negative energy, that's a frequency everybody picks up on, or positive energy. It's what draws people to each other. And so this vibrational sound work that I've been dabbling in a little bit is actually a really interesting way to, when you are sort of spinning out of control, to get your vibration sort of back to grounding, and in a way of like connecting with the earth, which is also a certain vibration. And that's why people do ground, or put your hands on the ground, or feet on the ground, or go for a walk. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but anyone who can go outside every day and put your hands and feet on the ground and touch the dirt, it is really does help you feel connected with the earth, because we are connected, but we forget that, especially when you're buzzing around. And if you live in a city, even New York, you can still. It's why people go to Central Park, because it works. For your mental health and wellness, your brain does respond to nature, to colors, to certain sound vibrations. It's why people listen to music for relaxation. And we respond to touch. It's why people like to pet a dog or a cat. And so it's kind of cool. So I do a lot of those things implemented in my day. Some are just walking my dog, but some are more specific with breathing exercises I've been doing. I do some cold therapy when I'm motivated to do it.
It's tough to do, isn't it? I'm about to start a challenge.
Hard.
I think I'm going to do a challenge month in February. I might do a nice challenge month and see if people want to get on board with me on that. But it does make you feel so great. But boy,
afterwards,
it takes a bit to do it.
Yeah, and I mean the good things are hard, but there's some stuff that's not hard, just like grounding, sitting on the ground, breathing. Those things are easy. The hot, cold, those are harder. Cold therapy is quite a bit harder.
I know. I had Dr. Ara Sapaya on, and he's a functional sports medicine doctor for all the professional golfers and tennis players, and a brilliant guy and a great story in his own right. But he was saying, look, if there's one thing that I tell you all to do is to, do the cold plunge every evening kind of thing. It's the best medicine out there, and full submersion. I'm like, okay.
Do I have to put my head under? Yeah.
I know. He says you kind of do. And I was like, I don't know about that. But I mean, you do feel so good doing it, though. It's crazy. I mean, but where you are, you could just run out and dive in the snow, couldn't you?
We could, and I do spend a lot more time outside, but I think, you're covered in clothes and things. I think, what I know about the cold plunges is that your cells and your skin have to really be exposed to it.
Yeah, okay.
But it's plenty cold where we are.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. When you're getting ready for some of these big events, I'm really fascinated by how these ultra endurance athletes like yourself train for them. Like for triathlon, it was always, for me, hour 45, everything was pretty specific, and dialed in. When you do the raid and they say, arrive in Hanoi and expect to paddle, track, mountain bike, climb, 400, 500 miles in forest. And that's all you're told, right? I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
how do you prepare for that? That to me has always been, I'm very curious how an ultra endurance athlete trains. That to me, do you just train all day, or I mean, you're training different now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm training differently now because it's not as multi-sport what I'm doing, but I'm using a lot of the same techniques. So triathlete, you've got to swim, bike, run. You've got to master, at least technically master those sports. So even in adventure racing, if you had to climb, do whatever, you've got to have the basic technical skill from that sport, and I was always a better climber, paddler, runner, and a lousy cyclist, but I was okay enough cyclist to get through it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It
was my worst event. Novak will tell you. Yeah.
And then it became a multiple world champion biker in your second career. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's
no,
awesome.
I kind of forget that sometimes, that people are like, wait, you mountain bike? Like, you were so bad. So it does go show you that, everyone can improve, but you've got to have a base level of technical skill for each one. And I was just really bad mountain biker. I cannot emphasize how bad I was.
That's awesome.
So it's the basic technical skill. You do the training, you do the hard work. None of that is rocket science. It is science, but it's not rocket science. But then I think the bigger part, which is why not everyone was cut out for these type of expeditions, is you've got to have sort of the resilience and the ability to pivot. And, as things change, as the terrain changes, as what's asked of you changes, that you can adapt and have some adaptability. It's why mountaineers do really well in multi-sport. You like adventure racing, climbers, it's not for everybody. That's for sure.
No.
Because a lot of people like more control and they like things that are exactly as they should be. But for me, I'll go back to the high school running example. I hated running around the track because I knew exactly how long each lap would take. I'm always making left turns, but I loved the cross country races. And some people were the other way around. They wanted to know exactly what was going to happen and exactly what markers they needed to hit. Whereas I'm like, I don't need to know that. I don't want to know that. It's more inspiring for me to be able to kind of be creative, I guess, on the trail.
It's funny you mentioned adaptability. When I had Mark Webber on, and he said he thinks adaptability is the biggest difference maker between the greatest sporting athletes, in the world compared to others. And we were talking about Roger Federer and his ability to adapt over sort of his entire career, from playing, I can't remember, Leighton Hewitts of the world to Nadal and Djokovic, and how he's had to just keep adapting and reinventing himself. And that seems to be a word that resonates with you and the other great athletes of the world that are able to go from one sport to another. And when things happen, they can adapt quickly. And the fact that you realize that as an athlete, that's just a tremendous gift that you have. If you can kind of go, okay, I'm going to go in this adventure world, adapt quickly when bad things happen. When my adventure racing career stops, I'm going to adapt and I'm going to become a world champion mountain biker.
Yeah.
Sorry, as I say that, I'm still laughing to myself. You say you were a terrible mountain biker.
I think it's sink or swim. It's like, what else are you going to do? You're out there. Are you going to either quit and go home, or are you going to carry on? And yeah, I mean, we do have a choice to quit or to not quit, even if we don't know the path forward.
When it comes to nutrition for these longer races, is there any specific diet, or again, you pretty bulletproof and
Yeah, this is evolved over the years too. I used to be in adventure racing days. It used to be like Cheetos and Swedish fish, and I felt like basically we were working so hard that we deserved to eat anything we wanted. And food was more emotional. But now I realize that it wasn't really serving me. So my nutrition, it's kind of for a multi-day or long bike expedition. One, if you're traveling like on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, you don't have a lot of choice. You take what is given. You can't carry enough food for the month. And so then it's rice and eggs and whatever, the culture there is, whatever the locals are eating is what you get to eat. So sometimes it's that, but if I can plan and I'm carrying my stuff, it's a combination between, I use GU Nutrition, and I really like, they have this drink called Roctane, that is my go-to. If I can't eat, my stomach's upset, I just can't do anything, I can always drink. Calories, electrolytes, amino acids are all in there. And so that's kind of my go-to all the time. I've got packets of those sort of on standby to mix with water. But then I've also gotten into making some of my own food, like date balls and rice cakes and things that are a little bit more real food and made at home. And that's been kind of the last couple of years I've been making some things and making my own little trail mix sort of cookies. I have a recipe that I can share with you that a friend designed for me.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
Hey, let's bring it over. I'll put it on the show notes and then I can use it for my kids and
Cool.
stuff as well.
It's a combo between real food and sort of scientifically created food. But I have gone a lot more the real food angle, sort of half and half right now.
Are you somebody that is kind of, you have your typical wake up, have your morning routine? That's always a big question that seems to be asked in a lot of, is there a morning routine that you follow, or is because you're doing 24-hour races, you don't have one, you just get up whenever you want?
If I'm at home, I try to do a morning routine, but like all of us, there's one that is my intention when I wake up, and the one that actually really happens is like, okay, I'm going to journal, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to, get coffee, journal, meditate, feed the dogs, and then walk the dogs, and then and I'm not going to pick up my phone or anything until all that happens. And then of course there's some days that happens that way, and then some days it's like you look at your phone right away, and then that starts a spiral of, oh, I should do this work, I should do that, I'm going to look at social media. So my planned morning routine is a little different than what actually happens every day, but I do set the intention of trying to take a little time in the morning to be quiet and think about my plans for the day. I do a couple little breathing things, but it doesn't happen all the time. We're not perfect.
No, none of us are.
Yeah.
You know what I've started doing? I actually, rather than I was fighting it for the longest time, grabbing the phone and especially like if a new podcast has come up and I want to make sure that, it did go up at 4 a.m. on a Monday. That's kind of, I have to do that every Monday. But then I promote it and I want to see if people are liking it. So that happens on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. And so I said, right, what you're going to do, and my wife Laura goes to the gym at 5:36. So one of us has to be home for the kids. So that's me. I have to sleep in. And so I say, right, when I wake up at 6 or around that time, I'm going to spend half an hour on the phone. I actually do it right away. That's my thing. But I have to on that. If somebody's written me, great job on the show, Greg, or Greg, how about you do this, or whatever it is, I spend that time. I have to reply. So it's a purposeful time.
Yeah.
Then I get up and I go have my coffee, and maybe our 3-year-old comes out around 7 o'clock to join me. And so I started, rather than sort of fighting myself with it, I was like, right, just embrace it for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you can ground yourself later. You can ground yourself, you can do your physical exercise, you can do all that after, because I just felt like I was beating myself up almost of trying to do that. So I don't know. I don't
want to interrupt, but I think it's important to listen to those rhythms of your own body. Like I tried to be a morning training athlete forever, and I'm just not, And
you and me both.
I beat myself up over it. And now I'm like, I'm going to train at 2:00. It's fine.
Yes.
What's the big deal?
It is so funny. I trained for 35 years. I've been getting up at 5 a.m. to go to swim squad and I'm a morning person. I must be a morning person. And then since having kids, and I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So I realized I feel better training at that 8, 9 o'clock, have breakfast with the kids first, or I just have coffee, but then I go train for an hour or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I feel good.
The
body doesn't feel very good at 5 in the morning. So I've realized maybe I'm not a morning person.
I'm definitely not a morning person. I'd rather stay up all night in an expedition than actually get up early.
That's awesome. That is so great, isn't it? It's funny how for me, I feel like I'm just cluing into this, and I'm almost 50 here, and I'm like, wow, I think I'm a night owl.
Coming from a swimmer, that's hard if you're not a morning person.
Well, you take away a big goal. I think I've been a goal-driven person my entire life. And right now, the goal is just to not have a dad bod, with a 1 and a 3-year-old. I don't want any big adventure goals right now. It's just I need to be here for them. But it's the focus changes, and you go, okay. And this has been good for me to get to know myself a little bit. It is interesting. Now, we've talked a lot about your different adventure races.
Goal, I will say that's a worthy goal, to raise your children well and not have a dad bod. And I think it's important. We have to let your goals morph and change. And that's, people will ask about longevity as an athlete. It's like, well, because I've let myself change my sport, my goals, whatever. I've listened to myself. So I think everyone, so your goal right now, not to have a dad bod and to hang out with your kids, I think that's rad.
Thank you. I'll take that, and I'm gonna take that and make sure Laura hears it.
Okay.
No, you're right though. I mean, I'm in a fortunate position. I get to choose the life I want a little bit right now, and that is that my choice is to spend it with the kids. And
you'll have a different.
But I do look in the mirror.
You'll have another athletic goal in a couple of years. It won't stay the same.
Actually, maybe you're the one I should run it by. I turn 50 next year, and I do want to do something. And I don't want it to be where I have to train so much that I can't see the kids. If it could be around that training, an hour to 2 hours. I don't have to be a world champion either. I just like to try and get through something. So if you have any ideas of what I should do for my 50th, I mean, is the
When's your
Rebecca's
birthday?
Private
What
Idaho?
day? Yeah. I was gonna,
I'm January 2nd, but I
yeah,
can do it anywhere in my
yeah.
50th year. It doesn't matter.
I mean, Rebecca's Private Idaho would be cool if you've never done a 100-mile gravel ride. That could
Yeah.
be pretty fun.
And it,
Or there's
yeah.
a stage race
What,
format. But yeah, I mean, I used to set, I mean, I think it's great to set a goal on a decade and you'll remember it. And, you know, I did that in 20s, 30s, 40s. I did it. I didn't, and for 50, I just went camping and like hang out with my husband.
mm,
I didn't really do a special thing,
that's nice though.
but it was amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, but you remember it.
I do.
But you remember it. It's one thing you could just let it go. I've told Laura I'm going to call it the 50 days of 50.
Mhm.
So I've got 50 days lined up,
Fun.
and I want to do some goals on the charitable side. So perhaps we can talk about your
Yeah.
foundation on that one. But I want to definitely do something charitable because I'm not a very good at serving others, and it's something I want to work on. Especially, you know, when you recognize that you have qualities of being quite selfish, and this is being a recent dad has taught me that I could do better at serving others, and that's part. So that's part of my whole kind of moving forward. And I thought, well, maybe for my 50th, there has to be a charitable component. There has to be a physical, a mental, emotional. Maybe they can all be sort of packaged together at some point. But yeah, maybe I'll talk to you about it. You
Beautiful
seem to
goal.
have put them all together pretty well.
Well, and you hit on something that's really cool.
Thank
When you check a few boxes for a goal, you know, it's doing good for yourself. You know, you're committing physically to a goal, you're committing to a cause that you believe in, you know, you're connecting with other people, and maybe you're sharing it and inspiring your children. When you can check, and you're getting some adventure, you know, and when you can check multiple boxes instead of just, I'm going to go win this race, or I'm going to go this fast on this segment, but you expand it to have sort of multi layers to the goal, suddenly it becomes really powerful and really motivating. And then when your motivation wanes in one area, it can pull you through because of one of the sub goals. And I think Blood Road, we keep coming back to it, but that's what made it so special. It wasn't just a physical expedition. You know, there were a lot of other layers to it. So as people are looking for their own goals, think about, can you check a few boxes that are important to you other than only the physical one? And I guarantee you're going to put more energy and life and excitement into that goal when it's got a few layers like that.
Tell me about talking about serving others and other goals and charitable. Tell me about Be Good and the foundation and what that's about.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of that was formulated when I finished Blood Road and rode the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I discovered something that I had no idea, and that there are many, many bombs still left from the Vietnam War that didn't detonate on impact. And so there is live ammunition, especially in the country of Laos. It was the most heavily bombed country in our history. And they estimate that 30% of the bombs that were dropped did not go off, did not detonate correctly, and they're still there.
Whoa.
And so people are still dying and from a war that happened 50 years ago. And I really feel my dad brought me there to show me that. He had remorse about, you know, the work he was doing. And so I came away with that new knowledge of all the devastation that is still left there from us, that I needed to do something about it to clean it up. And so that's where I launched the Be Good Foundation with, you know, our sort of seed and first really big project is to clear unexploded ordnance bombs along the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos. And so I started the foundation with that first project. And our mission statement with Be Good is to use the bike as a catalyst for healing, empowerment, and evolution. And so cleaning bombs along the Ho Chi Minh Trail is one of our projects. Rebecca's Private Idaho is a Be Good project, and we partner with local, national, and global organizations that are improving bike access for people around the world, from Africa to Idaho, where I live, and People for Bikes, rallies for bike lanes and transportation in the United States. So the areas that I focus on with Be Good Foundation are clearing bombs along the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos in my dad's name, but then also places to ride, access for people to ride, increasing diversity in outdoor sports through the bicycle. And so all the events that I
Hmm.
do have a component, a Be Good component to it. And it's been really exciting to take my racing, my expeditions, the events that I put on, and add that layer of that Be Good aspect to the layer, which is it's awesome. And we've been an official nonprofit just a year and a half, and so that's been an exciting journey to build that. And I'm really proud. This year in
Oh,
2020, we raised over $200,000 for other groups that are doing work under our mission statement. And so it was a good
oh
year.
wow. Yeah, well, congrats on all of that, and just truly inspiring. I mean, you just like you were talking about before, so many of your goals all coming into one area. I just think that's really inspiring, and you've got me thinking now. So I think we're going to be talking more beyond this show
Cool.
in this next 6 months. So I'd like to see what we could do. So I just think, huge congratulations. What's next for you as we look at 2021 and going forward in terms of, I mean, obviously the foundation, but events and things that you might do yourself?
Yeah, twofold. I've got my events that I put on that are on the roster. So I have a Giddy Up Challenge, which is an event in Everesting climbing event where people can do a quarter Everest, half, three-quarter, full, on foot, on bike, anywhere you are. And that's a big Be Good fundraiser that we launched last year and we'll do again this year. That's in Memorial Day weekend in May. And then Rebecca's Private Idaho, of course, is open now. And what's been cool about that platform, typically it's been an event in Idaho. But because of what we learned in 2020, we've been able to expand to a digital format. And so actually the event grew in 2020, even though we didn't have the in-person event. And it grew to include Private Idaho Sun Valley, which is the in-person event. Private Idaho Remote, which is how we did it in 2020, and people execute and build a Private Idaho course anywhere in the world. And we had 11 countries participate. And then we also added RPI Base Camp, which is an 8-week training program. And as you know, my goal with that was to bring the community together and give people access to my coach, to the mindfulness coaches that I have, and basically give people all the tools to prepare for an event of their own. And so that 3-tiered platform for Private Idaho is open now, and it's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited about 2020 because we can all say, oh, virtual events or that, but the landscape of events has changed. And even when people can travel and get together again, we've realized we can be connected digitally and we can feel community even if we're not physically in the room with someone. And not everyone can travel to Idaho to take part in Private Idaho. And so by having the remote version in the base camp, we're actually empowering people to be part of our community, even if they're not here with us. And so that has expanded the demographic, it's expanded the diversity, it's expanded, and being able to offer support for more people to get outside and challenge themselves is pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited about that. So I could tell you,
Well, there's the adaptability again. That's what I love. It's like, how do we adapt to our new circumstances? And there you are again.
it's
So
really
again,
cool.
congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that, because yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
now,
And so if you wanted to,
yeah.
sorry, if you want to build, so you plan your own 100-mile trail, and then you kind of, how does it work virtually?
Yeah, if you do the remote version, and I like to call it remote, not virtual, because to me, virtual means it's not real. Virtual is like an avatar on a screen. And for me, these are real rides with real people. And so I call it digital or RPI remote. And really, the tools that we give you are, how to use Garmin Connect to design a route, the route profile. You need to hit basically the distance and the elevation of what the course is here. And so you design something at home. So it's empowering people to explore their backyards, to connect with other friends. People will design routes and publish them. And what we saw last year, these little mini communities forming, in Chicago or in wherever, of people being like, oh, you're doing it. Do you want to share your route? Oh, maybe we could ride together. And so it was really the remote version. What I loved about it is got people exploring their own backyards. It gave them the tools to actually learn how to design a route and go execute it, and then, keep record of it. They put it up on a leaderboard, and, we had a worldwide leaderboard of people. If you hit the elevation and the distance markers, then you're on the leaderboard. And it was pretty cool way to make it happen. And we had a live awards party. But what I loved about it most is people got more tools in their toolbox to go explore their own backyard, and they connected with some people in their own community that they might not have met, and they connected in a global community. So we'll do that again
Are you doing
this year. Yeah, we're doing it this year. It's open, rebeccasprivateidaho.com, and the training program's open as well. And so, you're officially invited, which would be really fun if you add this to your list of the 50 shades of 50.
Yeah, hang on.
No, the 50 days of 50. Okay, wait.
Somebody's been reading too much.
Oh, that'd be funny. That'd be really funny. But for me, you asked me what I'm working towards. I'm really excited. I'm doing some winter bike expeditions coming up here really soon. So going back to Alaska the end of February will be my first travel. My last race was the Iditarod Trail Invitational in Alaska last March. And of course, came home to a different world. So hopefully we'll go there end of February. My husband and I got our vaccinations, which is exciting. But that'll be a big winter bike expedition, solo, self-supported, on the Iditarod Trail in Alaska. And then shortly after that, I have plans to go to Iceland with a couple of other athletes to do a self-supported snow bike expedition, traversing the interior of Iceland. So two big cold expeditions coming up. So I am doing that cold training right now.
I bet. My goodness. There's none of that interests me, by the way.
Yeah.
That cold and I mean, the logistics of getting ready for some of that must be unbelievable as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, or you just kind of
no. Yeah. I mean, I gravitated towards these. I said I would never do these winter bike expeditions because, like you, I actually don't really like being cold, and I'm not very good at it. I don't have good circulation. So people ask me why, and I realized I hadn't really put myself out there in a number of years. I hadn't really challenged myself and done something that was very, very committing. And being in a winter expedition environment is very committing. There's not a lot of room for error. And I realized I needed that challenge again. And so these winter expeditions are kind of new. And I went to the Iditarod for 2 years ago, first with the goal of just to actually survive with all my fingers and toes. And I did that. It was messy. And this will be my third year doing that. So I'm learning winter bike expeditions. I've been practicing a lot outside. I took a winter survival camp just a couple weeks ago. Because the commitment is really high, and there's a lot of equipment. There's a lot of logistics. Even just the act of eating food is hard because your mouth is covered with a face mask and goggles and everything else.
Oh man! Wow.
So it's pretty hard.
What kind of bike are you using? A fat tire bike? Yeah. What kind of bike do you use when you do these?
Big fat tire bike, and there's frame bags.
Oh, they're so hard to ride. Oh my goodness!
It's slow. It's slow, and you've got basically a hotel on wheels because you're carrying a -40 sleeping bag. You're carrying all of this survival gear, and so the bike is quite loaded down. It's like when all the gear's on it, a 25-pound bike goes to about a 50-pound bike with all the equipment you have to put on it.
Wow.
So I'm doing a lot of strength training right now.
I bet. I was going to say that you're probably not going much quicker than walking at that point, are you? With that heavier bike, that must be so hard. I mean, on the downhills.
5 miles an hour average is a good speed for a fat bike expedition. So
my goodness,
it's a lot different. Than it's still faster to ride. I mean, if you're walking fast, you walk 3 miles an hour. But it also takes you that kind of a bike with that much survival gear. You go places you could never access, and so to be able to ride, under the northern lights in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness, and literally wolves are howling all around you and you're alone, that's not an easy place to access.
Is it because cross-country skiing's too easy for you that you have to do it on the bike?
Actually, the human-powered event of the Iditarod, you can ski, bike, or walk. And actually, the bikers are the faster of the three pieces of equipment
Really?
choices. Yeah.
Huh. Well, there you go. I have no clue. Being an Australian and now living in Florida, I have zero clue about anything to do with cold or snow.
Exactly.
So,
You don't know what you're talking about.
I could. So maybe I should join you on one of these expeditions just to slap myself in the face. That's amazing. You've finally ended up in Idaho, but from what you've said, you traveled in your car for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your favorite training locations, places to live, or events that you've done throughout your career?
Let's see. I mean, I'm sort of in the U.S. when I was sort of traveling around and living out of the car. I gravitated to the Tahoe area, which is pretty great. And spent a bunch of time in the desert and around Moab. That's a pretty nice training ground. And ultimately landed here in Idaho. And really what kept me here of all the places I've traveled was the access to public land and the amount of public land and unspoiled nature that is in Idaho is there's more public land in this state than any other state other than Alaska. And so just the terrain was really inspiring to me. And the small town that I live in, it felt very homey. It's full of endurance athletes, but also just really nice people. So people in place kept me here. Some of the places I've really loved traveling to, I think if I didn't live in Australia or if I didn't live in Idaho, I'd probably live in Australia or New Zealand or Tasmania. That part of the world is so beautiful and such nice people. It's a cool spot, but I don't know. I've loved going everywhere. I loved being in the Himalayas and in Tibet and Nepal. That was really special. And obviously the jungles of Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia hold a special place for me. So, but I will say I love where I live. And so the lack of travel this year, while I miss going to some of those places, and it's the first year I haven't gone back to Laos since Blood Road, I also really like being at home and I like where I live and I feel lucky to be here. So I think that's important.
It's nice to find a place that you're happy to be. And I think one of the things when you start traveling is you realize there's so many places in the world that you'd want to live. And it gets harder almost to pinpoint exactly where you do want to kind of settle down. And I know Laura and I, we've lived everywhere, Boulder, Victoria, Canada, Noosa, Australia, all around the world, a lot in Europe. And we still go, where should we end up? It's like all of these places are super special, and it kind of gets, because you've experienced so much, it almost gets harder to pinpoint exactly where you do want to end up. But
everybody needs a beach house, a mountain house. If we could all do that, that'd be great.
No, that's true. Well, Rebecca, this has been such a joy. Really, I can't wait to when we get to actually meet in person, have a beer, and maybe do a training day together and just sit and chat. I could go on for hours listening to you speak and your stories, and you're just such an incredible human being. So it's been such a delight to have you on the show. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I look forward to being part of your challenge here, your wonderful 50, and riding a bike with you. I do hope we get to do that together.
Let's make it happen. I'm all in. I think this is, and look, we're accountability right now. This is coming out to the real world, so everybody can keep us. This is happening. Awesome. So now I'll put. Where's the best place for listeners to follow you?
All my platforms are at Rebecca Rusch, RUSCH.
Okay.
So social and LinkedIn and all those places. And then if you want to take part in some of my events and the training programs I do, that's at Rebecca's Private Idaho. But you can all find them through my name. It's pretty easy.
Perfect. Well, I'll put all of that in the show notes and timestamps and on bennettendurance.com/media for everybody listening. And everybody listening, thank you so much for listening and all your feedback for the show and all your suggestions. Just absolutely incredible. Thanks again, Rebecca. Just stay on the line. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. That was really fun. Be good.
Thanks a lot for listening. If you enjoyed the show, your support would truly be appreciated. You can visit the Patreon page or you can subscribe with your podcast app of choice. Don't miss the next episode, so subscribe and be notified. For show notes, if you want to know more, please visit bennettendurance.com. I'm Phil Liggett, and on behalf of Greg Bennett, here's to the next time, and I hope you will join Greg again very soon.